Have you ever walked into a room and forgot why you were there, or found yourself rereading the same sentence over and over, but it still didn't make sense? Maybe you've felt more forgetful lately, slower to respond, or just not as sharp as you used to be. And you might wonder, is it just age or something deeper? The truth is, it could be stress. Not the loud kind, not panic or fear, but a quieter kind, the stress that creeps in slowly and stays. That stress doesn't just affect your mood, it changes the way your brain works. It affects memory, focus, clarity, and even decision-making. It makes it harder to learn, harder to sleep, and harder to feel confident in your own mind. Over time, this can make you feel confused, overwhelmed, or even embarrassed, but it's not your fault, and it's not permanent. Because once you understand how stress affects the brain, especially after 60, you can begin to reverse it, you can support your mind naturally, and you can feel sharp, calm, and clear again. In this video, we'll explore what stress really does to the brain, how it affects memory, attention, and thinking, and most importantly, how to calm the brain and support long-term clarity without medication. Because getting smarter doesn't always mean doing more. Sometimes it means doing less and learning how to think clearly again. Your brain is designed to protect you. When it senses danger, it responds fast. It shifts your body into survival mode. Your heart beats faster, your muscles tighten, your blood sugar rises, and your attention narrows. This response is controlled by a part of your brain called the amygdala. It acts like a built-in alarm system. When stress shows up, the amygdala sounds the alarm, and everything else, the way you think, feel, and react, starts to change. During this time, the logical part of your brain slows down. That part is called the prefrontal cortex. It helps you make decisions, focus, and solve problems. But when the alarm is ringing, your brain sends energy away from thinking and towards surviving. This is helpful in short bursts. If you need to escape danger, you don't need to solve a puzzle, you just need to move. But when stress becomes chronic, when it never turns off, your brain stays stuck in this pattern, and over time, that causes trouble. You may find it harder to concentrate, harder to remember things, you may feel mentally cloudy even after rest, and your brain may feel slower, like it's walking through fog. Stress also shrinks the hippocampus. That's the part of your brain that stores memory. When stress hormones stay high, this area becomes less active. That's one reason memory loss becomes more common under stress. And long-term stress creates inflammation in the brain. It damages connections between neurons, it reduces blood flow, it can even lower your ability to learn new things. But here's the good news. The brain is adaptable. It can grow new connections, it can rebuild. And once stress is reduced, many of these effects can begin to reverse. It all starts with awareness and small changes in your daily life. In the next section, we'll look at how stress affects specific mental functions like memory, focus, and decision-making, and what you can do to support each one. Stress isn't always bad. In small amounts, it helps us stay alert, it keeps us on schedule, it pushes us to solve problems. But when stress doesn't stop, when it lingers quietly in the background, it starts to hurt the brain. Over time, high cortisol slowly damages brain cells, especially in areas related to memory and learning. It makes it harder to store new information, harder to focus, and harder to recall even simple things like names or appointments. Long-term stress is also linked to faster aging of the brain. Studies show that people with high stress in midlife are more likely to experience memory loss, confusion, and even dementia later on. The brain under constant stress becomes inflamed, it doesn't clean itself out as well, and the connections between brain cells, called synapses, start to weaken, which also typically encompasses depressive symptoms. That's when people begin to feel like their thinking is slipping. It's not always obvious at first. It might start with trouble concentrating, then misplacing things, then struggling to follow a conversation. These changes can feel frustrating, even frightening, but here's what matters most. Your brain is not broken, it's overwhelmed, and it needs time and space to come back into balance. With the right support, brain inflammation can go down, memory can improve, focus can return, and the risk of long-term decline can drop naturally and without pressure. The next step is understanding how to bring the brain out of that stress state and gently guide it back into clarity. When your body is under stress, your brain isn't thinking, it's reacting, and over time that affects how well you remember, focus, and learn. Let's start with memory. The brain stores short-term memories in the hippocampus, but when stress hormones like cortisol stay high, they interfere with this process. You may forget what someone just said, you might lose your train of thought, or you may walk into a room and not remember why. Stress also affects focus. When you're constantly alert, always checking, worrying, reacting, your brain stops filtering distractions. Everything feels urgent. Your attention jumps from one thing to another. It becomes harder to finish tasks, harder to listen, and harder to stay present in conversations. Then there's learning, whether it's a new recipe, a new name, or even just trying to follow instructions. Stress makes your brain resist new information, because when your nervous system is in survival mode, learning is not a priority. Staying safe is. This is why so many older adults say things like, "I used to be sharper," or "I just don't learn the way I used to." It's not always aging, it's often stress. The good news is, these functions can improve. The brain can rebuild connections. But first, it needs safety, it needs calm, it needs space to process again. In the next section, we'll look at how stress affects sleep, mood, and decision-making, and what you can do to restore clarity. When your brain is under stress, it doesn't rest. It stays alert, it stays tense, and that affects more than just memory. It begins to change your sleep, your emotions, and the way you make decisions. Let's start with sleep. Stress hormones like cortisol follow a daily rhythm. They should rise in the morning and fall at night. But when you're under chronic stress, that rhythm gets disrupted. Cortisol stays high in the evening, keeping your brain active when it should be winding down. You may lie in bed, tired but wired. You may wake up in the middle of the night with your mind racing. Or you may sleep through the night, but still feel exhausted in the morning. Poor sleep then makes the brain even more vulnerable to stress. It's a cycle. Stress affects sleep, and lack of sleep makes stress harder to handle. Now let's talk about mood. When the brain is constantly in survival mode, it reacts more quickly and more intensely. Small things feel overwhelming. You may notice you're more irritable, less patient, or more withdrawn than usual. That's because stress reduces serotonin, the brain's feel-good chemical. It increases inflammation, which affects your emotional balance. And it shrinks the parts of your brain that help you feel safe and steady. And what about decision-making? When you're calm, your brain can think clearly, weigh options, consider the long term. But under stress, the brain shifts into short-term thinking. It chooses fast over smart, comfort over care. And that leads to decisions you may later regret or struggle to even make at all. Over time, these changes can feel discouraging. You might wonder, why can't I think straight? Or why do I feel like I'm always reacting? But again, it's not about weakness, it's about biology. And biology can be supported. In the next section, we'll look at how stress impacts the aging brain and how you can gently protect your mind with small daily choices. As we age, our brains naturally change. Memory may slow a little. Focus may take more effort. That's normal. But when you add stress to the picture, those changes become more noticeable and more frustrating. It's because the aging brain is more sensitive to cortisol. The longer stress stays in your system, the harder it becomes for your brain to recover. Cells in the memory center, the hippocampus, are more likely to shrink. Inflammation builds faster, and the brain becomes less efficient at clearing out waste. You may notice it in small ways. Words don't come as quickly. You lose your train of thought. You feel mentally tired sooner in the day. These signs don't mean your brain is failing. They often mean it's overworked and undersupported. Sleep also becomes more fragile with age, and because stress makes sleep lighter, many older adults wake up too early or feel unrested, even after a full night in bed. Mood can shift too. Stress increases the risk of depression and anxiety in seniors, not because of weakness, but because the brain is trying to stay alert all the time. But here's the hope. The aging brain is still capable of change. It's still plastic. It can still grow new connections, improve blood flow, and recover from stress. In fact, supporting your brain after 60 may be even more important than when you were younger, because now every bit of calm, every moment of rest, every choice to slow down goes farther. The brain doesn't need more pressure. It needs safety. It needs rhythm. It needs nourishment. In the next part, we'll explore how to do that gently and naturally so your mind can think clearly again, able to improve cognition. You don't need expensive treatments or complicated routines to protect your brain from stress. What you need is consistency, small habits that signal safety, actions that gently shift your nervous system out of survival and back into clarity. Let's begin with breathing. It sounds simple, but slow, deep breathing calms your nervous system, lowers cortisol, and increases oxygen to the brain. Try inhaling through your nose for 4 seconds, holding for a moment, then exhaling slowly through your mouth for 6 seconds. A few minutes a day can help restore focus and calm. Movement is another key. Gentle walking, stretching, or light activity helps release stress hormones and increase blood flow to the brain. It doesn't have to be intense. A 15-minute walk in fresh air does more for your brain than you might expect. Sleep is your brain's reset button. To improve sleep, try going to bed and waking at the same time each day. Avoid screens at night. Dim the lights. Create a peaceful routine. When your body knows when to rest, your brain heals more deeply. Nutrition also matters. Foods rich in omega-3 fats, magnesium, and antioxidants help protect the brain. Think of wild salmon, leafy greens, berries, and nuts. Avoiding processed sugar and refined carbs can also lower inflammation and stabilize energy. Connection is powerful too. Time with loved ones, kind conversations, laughter. These don't just lift your mood, they strengthen the brain and buffer against stress. Stillness helps more than we realize. A few minutes of quiet each day, whether through prayer, meditation, or simply sitting with your eyes closed, gives your brain the pause it needs. These aren't quick fixes, but they are real solutions. They support your biology instead of fighting it, and over time, they help your brain think more clearly, feel more balanced, and recover faster. In the next part, we'll explore how learning, purpose, and mental stimulation also help reverse the effects of stress and keep your brain sharp. Your brain was made to grow. Even after 60, even after stress, even after years of fog and fatigue, and one of the most powerful ways to keep it sharp is to keep it curious. Learning something new activates the parts of your brain responsible for memory, attention, and problem-solving. It doesn't have to be big. It could be a new recipe, a new word, a new way to move your hands or your body. What matters is that you stay engaged, that you challenge your mind gently. When you do, your brain forms new connections, and those connections protect you from the damage stress can cause. But there's something even deeper: purpose. When you wake up with a reason, when you feel needed, when you feel like your voice still matters, your brain responds. Studies show that older adults with a sense of purpose have stronger memory, better mood, and a lower risk of cognitive decline. Purpose doesn't have to be complicated. It can be tending a garden, helping a friend, writing a note, making something with your hands. Your brain thrives when it's connected to meaning, when it feels useful, when it's not just surviving but creating, giving, and growing. Even something as simple as reading, listening to music with attention, or talking about meaningful topics can shift your brain out of stress and back into engagement. You don't have to learn everything at once, you just have to stay open to trying, open to feeling challenged, open to the idea that your brain still wants to grow. In the final section, we'll tie everything together and remind you why your calm, clear mind is closer than you think. If you've been feeling foggy, forgetful, or just not like yourself, it doesn't mean you're broken, and it doesn't mean you're too old to think clearly again. More often than not, it means your brain has been under stress, quiet stress, lingering stress, the kind that builds up slowly and makes everything feel harder. But now you understand why. You've seen how stress affects memory, sleep, focus, and mood. You've seen how it changes your decisions and how it makes the world feel heavier than it really is. But you've also learned something more important. Your brain can recover. With small, simple steps, breathing, rest, movement, connection, you begin to send your body a new message. You are safe now. You don't have to stay on alert. You can think clearly again. Your age doesn't stop you. Your past doesn't define you. Your brain is still listening, still learning, still growing. And the more kindness you give yourself through gentle routines and peaceful moments, the more your brain will respond. So be patient, be steady, be gentle. The fog can lift, the focus can return, and your mind can feel like home again. If this video gave you clarity or made you feel understood, we'd be honored if you gave it a like. And if you haven't already, we invite you to subscribe to Senior Help Live. Here, we share weekly videos made just for you, gentle, science-based, and focused on helping you feel stronger, clearer, and more at peace, naturally, and without pressure. Because your brain still matters, your peace still matters, and your health journey isn't over, it's just beginning. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Take a deep breath, and take good care of yourself. You deserve it.